Welcome to Cultivate, a space for powerful conversations that help you grow personally, professionally, and with purpose. I'm your host, Alex, and today's guest is someone whose work sits at the intersection of generosity, legacy, and community. And this conversation left me thinking differently about what it means to give with intention. Monica has spent her career in the nonprofit and philanthropy space, rooted right here in Central New York. After studying public relations at Syracuse University's Newhouse School, she built a career connecting people to causes that matter. First in higher education fundraising, and now at the Central New York Community Foundation, where she's spent over a decade helping donors build meaningful legacies and families teach their children the power of giving back. She holds a Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy designation, a Master's in Arts Administration, and currently leads the Advancement Network, a national association for community foundation professionals. But beyond the credentials, Monica is someone who deeply understands people, what drives them to give, what holds them back, and how philanthropy can be one of the most powerful tools for living a life of purpose. Today, we're talking about generosity, but not just writing checks. We're talking about legacy, values, and what it looks like to build something that outlasts you. This conversation is warm, grounding, and full of wisdom. If you've ever wondered how to be more intentional with your giving or what it truly means to leave a mark on your community, this one's for you. All right, let's dive in. Monica Merante, welcome to Cultivate.
Thanks, Alex. It's great to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here. I absolutely love any time I can sit down with someone from the Community Foundation. So, I'm excited to hear about all the incredible work you guys are doing right now. But I'm really curious. You are a graduate from Newhouse, one of the top communications schools in the country. You were in the PR area, right?
Mhm.
And now you are the Senior Director of Philanthropic Services at the largest foundation in Central New York. How did that happen?
It was a journey. I'm grateful for my time at Newhouse because they taught me how to write. They taught me how to communicate ideas. And that was applicable in so many different ways. So I wasn't pigeonholed into one particular job or career. It really set me up to do lots of different things. And the nonprofit space spoke to the values that I grew up with. My dad was a social worker. My parents met at Catholic Charities. So the idea of service and being part of a larger community really resonated with me, and the nonprofit sector has just been a natural fit.
What did philanthropy look like for you growing up?
Oh, that's a great question. I came from a family of 5 children. And so, as I mentioned, my dad was a social worker. We didn't have a lot of money to go around, but that didn't seem to matter. I think that growing up as a Catholic, there was some structure there that naturally lended itself to learning about and living generosity and living, to help and serve others. So, because of that architecture, the idea of giving came very naturally to me in not just monetary ways, but um, other ways too. Volunteering, sharing what you have, making sure that people who don't have as much of you have access, if you can help it. So those kinds of messages were clear and something that I brought with me to my grown up world too.
What particular causes were you interested in the beginning of your career, and have they shifted, or are there other causes that you're really drawn to right now?
I think right now, just knowing what the landscape is, the nonprofit landscape, and our socioeconomic landscape right now, basic needs are where my attention and where my money goes right now. I'm also a big supporter of mental health. I think that mental health is part of that um, larger wicked problem of poverty. And it's like a lot of wicked problems. It's not easy to just you can't throw money at it and solve it. I was talking with someone the other day about poverty specifically and how it's like a mess of Christmas lights, and so you might find the plug, for one of the strands, and you're like, oh, good, I'm making progress. I just have to work backwards, and then you find that there are three others wrapped around it so tightly that you can't pull it out. So it's not a linear. It's not a problem that can be solved in a linear way. But I found that mental health, maybe because of my dad's background in social work, is one of those causes that really touches my heart and something that is pervasive, and sort of is integrated with a lot of other social ails that we're experiencing.
Yeah, no, that's a really beautiful and heartbreaking analogy about poverty. And how do you see mental health in central New York being addressed right now? What I know I can think of a few foundations and organizations that are, doing the work, but is there anyone that you'd like to shout out?
Oh gosh, there are so many. I right now I'm on the board of Contact Community Services, and I didn't realize until I was on the board of that organization just how much they do. And their presence in schools, their availability for people who just need someone to talk to on the phone, is a good example of how sometimes when I'm talking to folks about a problem like mental health, they'll say, well, they need to be in schools more, they need to be doing this, they need to be doing that, without realizing that a lot of those things are in place. We're trying. There are organizations that are doing the things that you're suggesting, and if it were an easy problem to solve, we would have solved it already.
Yeah.
So, because I'm so close to Contact and because I'm so familiar with their mission and their work, that's definitely one that I'm proud of, and I'm grateful that we have them in our community.
Yeah. I recently just heard that there's somewhat around 800 nonprofit organizations in central New York. And there's so many, I mean, different sized organizations and so many organizations that I'm constantly learning about. And I've said this before on this podcast, but I don't think people in central New York really realize how fortunate we are for all of the incredible nonprofit organizations and the resources that we have here. Um, and I'm just wondering, how do you think we, everyday people in central New York, could support those nonprofits and help them get the support they need, the funding they need, or just simply do better and be more supported?
I'm thrilled that you mentioned that, we have a really robust nonprofit landscape here because it's something I'm really proud of. I spoke with a woman who moved here from someplace else, and it wasn't even the number of nonprofits that we have in our area that impressed her. More, it was how they collaborate with each other. So to prevent, duplication of services, there are partnerships. People are like, well, you're doing this, I'm doing that. I bet if we work together, we could, you know, um, move the needle on this a little bit, to use an overused term, move the needle on this. Um,
I have noticed that too. There is a lot of collaboration.
yeah. And so I think as donors and as community members, acknowledging that and supporting nonprofits not only with donations, but with board service, with volunteering, and with kudos. I mean, there's a lot of I don't want to say a lot. It's very easy to criticize the nonprofit sector because they're supposed to be responsible for fixing the things, but it's incredibly difficult work. So when you're seeing a nonprofit that's doing good work, that's collaborating with another, that's telling amazing stories, shine a light on them, talk about them on social media, say, oh my gosh, did you see what these folks are doing? So that it changes the narrative a little bit.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. We try our best to point people in the right direction as much as possible, at least when they're coming into our world at the CNY Women's Network. And when I first started this organization, I was of the mind that I have to solve every problem that's related to women professionals and women business owners in Central New York. And
How's that going, Alex?
it was silly. It was so delusional of me to feel that way. If there's anything I've learned in business is just look for the white space and don't even bother reinventing the wheel, because there are so many people you could partner or collaborate with. Why would you reinvent the wheel when there's already someone over here doing the work that should continue doing what they're good at, right?
Mhm.
So as soon as I was able to shift that mindset, I feel like that's really when things shifted for me and for the business.
Mhm.
And now we try to point people and act as a connector, and which that's really what we do,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
Is
I love that.
refer people as much as possible, refer people to members as much as possible, things like that. But of course, we have like the Wise Women's Business Center, WBOC, Women United, so many other organizations that's dedicated to supporting and connecting and empowering women in this community. So I'm all for that. Just more is more when it comes to two organizations filling each other's gaps and overall just making our community a better place.
Mhm.
So at this point in your career, I mean, you've done some really important work here. How do you define your role as a leader right now? And how has it changed for you too, since you
Yeah.
started to lead?
Um, that's such an interesting question because as someone who has kind of evolved into a position where people view me as a leader, I defer to them to define what kind of leader I am. I suppose I know the kind of leader I want to be. I want to be of service. I want to be um, a learner. Like there's Lisa Moore over at OHA has the she considers herself a student leader. She acknowledged, that in her position, she doesn't know all the things about historic preservation, but she has an amazing team, that she's been charged with leading. So she's continually learning from them about the work. And it's her job to keep the ship steady and moving forward. That really resonated with me.
That resonates with me too.
Oh,
I'm the
Lisa's wonderful. She's an amazing person. Um, so I think that those as a leader, I'm sort of evolving continually, but with certain values that are guiding me: service, humility, transparency. And I certainly don't always get it right, but
yeah.
it's something that's just a continual process.
I think the transparency part is interesting because I think when you're in a leadership position, at least when you're new to it, like myself, you can fall into this mind trap of thinking that you have to be perfect and solid and smart and good for everyone and especially for your team. And the transparency part can be a little scary sometimes, especially when you don't know what next move to make or you don't know how to solve the big problem. And all you want to do is make sure your team and the people you're leading feel good about your leadership,
Hmm.
right? So the transparency part can be tricky for people. Have you ever struggled with that, or have you ever had fear of telling the truth and being transparent about the hard things you're dealing with as a leader?
All the time. It's it makes you feel vulnerable,
Hmm.
when you're talking with your team and you say, I don't really know. I don't I don't have an answer for this one. Um, but I'm going to find an answer, or we're going to find an answer together, or here's what I can tell you, or here's what I'm thinking is going to happen in the next couple months. So it's not the value in that way is not about knowing all of the things, because I think that's a really common misconception. You're not supposed to know all the things, as a leader. Telling your team that you don't know all the things is okay. It makes you human, it makes you relatable, and it builds trust because they essentially know you're not trying to pull the wool over on
Hmm.
them. But it's scary, especially at first, you
Yeah.
know?
And there's been times where, you know, I've never had a problem with seeing something I wanted to try or do and just doing it.
Oh,
Even
good for
even if
you.
I know nothing about it, which I know that that's rare and that's not the case for most people. I think that that's what I mean when I say I'm a little crazy. But the downside of that is there's a lot of risk in that, of course, but there's also a lot of explaining. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm figuring it out as I go. The best thing I've realized is explaining that and then also following up with, but I am committed to figuring it out. And I'm committed to, maintaining my integrity around this and doing good and
Mhm,
being good, right? Because that's all you can do, right? But, I think when it comes to transparency and leadership, especially when that's the case, you took a big risk, you took on a project or you're doing something for the first time you've never done before. The fear I have had is, oh my gosh, if I admit too many times that I don't know what I'm doing or I need help or I don't know how to solve this problem, will I seem like I'm not qualified for the job?
mhm.
Or will I seem incompetent, like an incompetent leader? God forbid. Because that's, of course, the last thing you want to come across as when you just don't want to disappoint your team.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And I think as women, we have this sort of extra hill to climb around proving ourselves. Um, and so the dynamic, the traditional work dynamic of, the boss knows all the things and makes all the decisions, that's sort of been our model that we grew up seeing. But I don't think it works, and I definitely don't think it works for us.
Mm.
Because we have superpowers as women, that like being able to be strong and vulnerable simultaneously. That is part of what makes us such exceptional leaders. So it's okay to sort of embrace that, and it makes us different, but I also think it makes us better.
This episode is brought to you by the Central New York Community Foundation, an organization that helps make Central New York a place where people can truly thrive. From youth programs in arts and culture to safe housing, crisis response, parks and recreation, workforce development, and access to opportunity, their impact touches nearly every corner of our community. And now they're launching a new podcast called Sincerely CNY. It's going to be a love letter to this region, hosted by President and CEO Melanie Littlejohn. There's going to be intimate conversations with the quiet champions and visionary leaders shaping the future of Central New York, and you're not going to want to miss out. So keep your eyes out for its launch and get ready to experience the heart, purpose, and future of this region. Signed, Sincerely CNY.
I definitely agree. And it's a really good reminder to really lean into your vulnerability and understand that that's not a liability. It's just vulnerability, right?
Mhm.
What is one shift that leaders can make in their everyday lives or businesses to better support different personalities on their team? I think
Mhm.
that's been a struggle is like when I started my business, I was so naive and I'm like, "Oh, I'm just going to hire people and it's going to be so easy. Like I'm not going to have to do as much work." But then I quickly realized that leading people and managing people and getting people on board, making people feel motivated to do their work. I mean, it's the hardest part
Mhm.
of business and leadership.
Mhm.
So, how do you support the people on your team depending on, their different personality types or their different leadership styles?
The first thing that you could do, I guess, is the way that you phrase the question, is become a keen observer. I think the more that you, as a leader or a manager, observe your team, the more you'll pick up on different personality types, but also different needs. You need to manage people differently because we're not all the same, especially if we're striving for more diverse teams. Diversity of background, diversity of experience, diversity of identity. People bring all of that with them. to the table. And so you can't manage with a cookie cutter style. You need to, or even lead with a cookie cutter style. You have to find out, by watching and listening and asking questions and then hearing the response, what the person needs in order to be their best. It takes time.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't just expect to know how to manage everybody overnight, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've mentioned managing introverts versus extroverts. What do you identify as? Are you an introvert or extrovert?
Ooh, big question, Alex. I would say I tend toward introvert. And I read Susan Cain's book Quiet earlier on in my career, and that was uh, life-changing for me because, as a development professional, the brand that we have is, oh, we're handshakers, we're out there, we're at events, we're making connections, we're building relationships. It's very extroverted behavior. And I struggled with it. I'm like, do I even belong in this field? And the reframing of what extroverts and introverts are, or what those behaviors or tendencies or characteristics are, really, really helped me. I don't think of it so much as a spectrum, as more of a soundboard. People are complex, and different aspects of folks might be more introverted, compared to extroverted. But in a situation where I'm managing people, I think there are two areas, where that shows up the most. I think that tendencies and processing are the two places where I sort of rely on what I learned about introversion and extroversion. So, for example, extroverts might gain energy from certain group settings. Introverts are drained by that same setting. So knowing that about your people helps you understand why after a big board meeting, one of them is energized and the other one is like, oh my gosh, I just need a minute, So you're not jumping to conclusions or assuming why their behavior is such. Another example is, the way that people process, the way that people think. Processing out loud, thinking out loud is an extroverted tendency. It's an extroversion characteristic. Introverts turn inward to process and think. So when you are in a meeting, a staff meeting, and there's one person who's talking because they're discussing ideas, and another person who's very quiet, it doesn't mean that there's they're not both thinking, they're not both processing. They may have they have they both have value to the situation. It's just knowing that how they process is different helps you make sure they're both heard. Because that introvert who's not talking in the meeting, you might need to go the extra step and circle back to them later and say, hey, what did you think about what we talked about in the meeting? So after they've had time to sit with it and turn it over in their brain, then they might be ready to share. Whereas the other person was ready and able to share in the situation because it was right here. It was like it was part of their processing technique.
Yeah, and the introvert might not be comfortable with sharing in front of a large group. It might prefer more one-on-one kind of feedback style, right? I'm curious, you are in development and you are an introvert, and you mentioned that it was a little bit of a struggle at first for you. What is your approach to networking and relationship building as an introvert?
It's something that I've developed as just an aspect of my personality. And I'll let you in on it a little bit. When I know I have to go to an event where there will be donors and friends and board members, and socializing with them and connecting with them is part of why I'm there. I have a little preparation that I do ahead. I kind of get into that zone of like, all right, here we go. It's game time, and I sort of step into that scary place of like, oh my gosh, I've got to make conversation with people.
No, I do the same thing. I love it.
Right?
I mean, you have to get primed, right?
Mhm.
And I think a lot of people would just assume that I'm so used to and comfortable with walking into rooms and kind of shaking hands, kissing babies, doing what I have to
Right.
do, right? What I do is so social. I mean, even hosting events too.
Mhm.
It's like creating and holding space for people.
Yeah.
Um, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And I would say that I am a natural extrovert, but how I'm feeling now, I think what I have to do is so extroverted, but when I feel most like myself is when I'm a lot more introverted. And I love being alone and being in my own head and
Mhm.
really processing things just like in solitude.
Mhm.
Um, but I've always been a little confused on whether or not am I an introvert or extrovert? I can't tell.
Mhm. Yeah.
But, I just think that this whole concept of networking for introverts has always been something that's fascinated me and something I've always wanted to talk more about because a lot of the people that reach out to us at CNY Women's Network that are like, hey, I kind of need help because I'm not, don't get me wrong, I love what I see with your events. They look awesome.
Mhm.
I need to network, but I'm just not comfortable with that. What do I do?
Mhm.
And the advice I give is, well, one-on-one might be your style, and that's totally okay.
Mhm.
You don't have to go to a, foreign environment and take on a big scary networking event. You can attract too. You can find ways to kind of naturally attract people into your circle, and to your network as well. It's not always about chasing.
Mhm.
So I'm just curious on how you've approached that over the years.
Yeah. I love that advice that, find people who are on the same wavelength as you, who are more comfortable meeting for coffee for an hour before work than going to, a gala and making sure that, they connect with the 30 people they're supposed to, just because it's hard doesn't mean that we can't do it, but those if you're better at making those deeper connections, that's just as much of value, as somebody who can go and work a room really well.
As an introvert, would you say like what shifts in your brain when you know you have to go in and work a room and do
Mhm.
that whole thing and you do know, okay, I have to go to this event tonight and I have to make sure I'm talking to these people and it's probably going to be about 20 different conversations I'm having.
Mhm.
What do you have to shift in your mental state, your energy? I know that you said you get pumped up, but specifically, what does that look like for you?
Mhm.
Do you listen
Um
to your favorite song? Do you look I mean, I go to the bathroom and I look myself dead in the eyes and I'm like, "All right, girl, let's," like I give myself a little third person coaching session and I probably
I
look
love it.
insane,
Do you have, like,
but
an extrovert prep playlist? Because that would be awesome.
well, maybe we should work on that.
We
We
should.
should create some
There's a
sort of
business
like
opportunity there.
digital resource guide or whatever. But like Tony Robbins talks about priming,
Mhm.
right? This is not a new concept, but I do think that priming yourself for networking events, for meetings, it looks different for everyone. It
Mhm.
really is about what works for you, what motivates you, what puts you in that energy.
Mhm.
Does it look like sitting down? So it looks different for me depending on how I'm actually feeling, but sometimes it's me sitting on the floor in front of my red light panel and like focusing on regulating and
Mhm.
grounding my nervous system, where other times it looks like literally jumping around in the bathroom
Just trying to get your
and
energy
like
up, yeah.
listening to Megan the Stallion. So it
She's making the list.
it
She's
depends.
totally making the playlist.
I love that.
Mhm.
You've also brought up the idea of achievement versus contribution. Can you explain those two concepts and break that down for us in terms of workplace culture and managing people?
Sure. I I draw a distinction between those two, and I don't want to assign a value to them. I don't want to say this is good or this is bad. I think that there's value for having both approaches in a work environment, but as a leader, being able to recognize folks who tend one way toward the or the other is really important. I think that achievement is it's more me-centered. There's a required attitude of competition, and the objective is recognition. So people who are looking for achievement, they're looking for that next brass ring. They're ready to climb. They feel most engaged when they're kind of in the run for something, and feel like they're well informed, and so that they can get to the next step. Contribution is different in that it's other centered. It requires an attitude of collaboration, and the result is evolution. So it's sort of on the other side of the pendulum. As a leader, if you've got achievers and contributors, again, there's value in both. You need that engine of people who are like striving for the next thing, who, want to get to the next position, who are willing to advocate for themselves. And you also need contributors because they're the glue that holds the team together. The people who are not looking for recognition, but they're looking for acknowledgement, and that's where they feel value. What that means too as a leader is that if you want to hear from the contributors, you've got to go seek them out. Somebody who is focused on achievement, they will tell you, what they think. They will advocate for themselves. They will pull up a chair at the table. Contributors don't always do that. But so if you want to make sure that they feel like they're part, that they're heard, that they have a seat at the table, you have to go to them and invite them in.
That makes a lot of sense. How can a leader find out if someone is an achiever or a contributor? What are the questions you're asking them?
I think it really comes back to observation. I think that the behaviors sort of make themselves known the more that you watch someone, in meetings. Who's the first to speak up, who relates the subject back to their own work, who talks about things in terms of we, or how is this going to affect the whole team. So identifying those different personalities really comes from observation, in people's natural environment of a staff meeting. And again, they're both valuable. It's not that one's good or one's bad, but they require different management styles. And in order to really tap the value of both, you have to approach them differently, I think.
Yeah. I'm just sitting here thinking, am I a contributor or an achiever? Because I love to use the word we, but I'm definitely competitive.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely like I'm not afraid to, well, I think it really depends on what environment I'm in.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's kind of situational. You might, be more into contribution in a certain environment or certain situation. And then in other situations, you're like, I'm going for it. This is like, I got a goal,
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the 7 types of rest. This I'm super interested to learn more about. What is the idea of 7 types of rest? Isn't something most people think about. Can you walk us through what that means?
Sure. It's a framework that is based on, it was developed by Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith. She's a physician and a work-life integration researcher. And I actually brought a piece of paper with them all written down so I don't misspeak, because her research is wonderful and I want to give her credit where it's due. She developed the 7 types of rest framework because she recognized that, particularly among women, there's a pervasive sense of exhaustion. And it's frustrating when even when you get 8 hours of sleep and you're like, oh, I should be well rested. I'm doing all the things. You're still tired. Where is that deficit coming from? So she created this framework that identifies different types of rest that you can use in order to reset that that deficit. Fill your cup back up.
Yeah.
And the 7 different types are physical, mental, sensory, creative, emotional, social, and spiritual. And the actions that you take, the habits, for tapping into those types of rest to recharge your batteries are different as well. It's a really fascinating body of work. I've shared a like a chart on LinkedIn that talks a little bit about it. It's just because I think it resonates, certainly resonates for me, and it's something that I want to share, particularly with other women who are just like tired, but they're
Ugh.
not even sure why they're tired, and then they beat themselves up over it.
No, I love that. I actually am going to record a solo episode after this today. And I was just thinking about, I was thinking about it this morning. What do I want to talk about and how I want to open it up? And one of the things that came to mind of what I want to say is I was going to open it up with just saying, I'm tired. I'm just so tired. And, but in a way, I think I've been tired, but I've hit a point, which I'm going to open up about on this episode, where I can feel the energy coming back, and I can feel the drive and the motivation coming back. And I'm almost like, it feels like you've lost your mojo. What
Mhm.
happened? I'm getting all the rest. I'm eating well. I feel like I'm doing everything right on paper. Why am I still drained and
Mhm.
exhausted? And I think a lot of this drained feeling can come from a place of doing all of the work and working really hard, but maybe you don't feel like it's going to actually work out. Maybe you feel like all the work you're putting in might not be fruitful, or
Mhm.
might not be worth it, which I know a lot of just like women that may have just started their business, or they're in the first 3 years of their business where they're still kind of figuring out what this business is,
Mhm.
might relate to that. And I also just think a lot of women leaders, women in general, I mean, we're leaders at home, we're leaders in friendship. Um, I think leadership is a term that can be applied to anyone, truly. But, a lot of women who are leading people in business, at work, and also in an emotional life. There's just a lot of things that women are carrying
Mhm.
around, despite the fact that they might be taking good care of their bodies or their health. Why are they still so exhausted?
Mhm.
What drew you to this work? Were you in a place where you were feeling that?
Yeah, yeah. I think that I have that undercurrent of, is this going to be enough? Which is kind of sort of a constant stressor. Am I working hard enough? Am I loving hard enough? Am I giving enough? All of that. And I don't have answers for how to make the world less chaotic or make women's lives easier. So I'm searching for ways, like coping mechanisms, essentially. When you were talking just now about how we're leaders in so many different spaces and we're caretakers in so many different spaces, that speaks to the fact that we're really complex. We're complex beings. So why would just getting 8 hours of sleep be enough? Why would just getting enough water every day be enough? There are different needs that we have for recharging and rest that are beyond just the physical, because we're more than physical. Um, so that's why this framework makes sense to me, I guess.
It's a friendly reminder that there are so many other types of rest, yes, but just areas of our lives that need tending to, right? Like
Mhm.
our emotional, our certainly our spiritual. That's an area of my life in the last year that I've feel like I've unlocked, and I've been like, "Oh yeah, I do need to invest in this. I do need to
Mhm.
make time for this." And it's done nothing but totally make my life so much better and
Mhm.
make me much more peaceful, grounded, balanced.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you try to make an effort to do regularly ish, as much as you can, that fill your cup?
I have gotten a lot better at boundary setting over the past few years. And recognizing that no is a complete sentence, which is has taken a long time for a chronic people pleaser to get to. But I boundary setting is one of the things that helps me tap into mental rest and social rest, which are because I'm in my head a lot, as an introvert, and I process things internally. I need that space. And the only way to create that space is by setting boundaries for external things, whether that be invitations to parties, opportunities, just getting over the FOMO.
Hmm.
And yeah, I might miss this, but I know that I need to create this space so that I can recharge my batteries so I can take advantage of what's next.
Yeah, that really resonates with me. That's been something I've been navigating for, I feel like, ever now. I think it might be a lifelong journey for me, as also as a chronic people pleaser myself. I've found that the worst, I think the reason why a lot of us can't say no or push our boundaries aside is just fear of disappointing others,
Hmm.
or maybe fear of making the wrong decision, saying no to the wrong thing. That's
Hmm.
especially when you say no to an opportunity, right?
Hmm.
So, are you able to just let us in a little bit about that decision making? How do you discern, what you decide to spend your energy on
Hmm.
and what you need to say no to?
Uh, a lot of it comes back to um, what my core values are. What are the things that are most important to me? And I do a lot of values work, both personally, and through my work at the Community Foundation. So it's the terminology is very accessible to me. What's most important to me in my life? Peace, for example. Peace is important to me. I'm at my best when I can exist, in that space, or share it with others. So knowing that if I'm faced with a decision that I know is going to bring chaos into my life, whether it for even just a temporary, amount of time, I weigh that against, okay, is this worth it? Is this going to, is this decision to invite this chaos into my life for this amount of time worth losing my peace for that period of time? And sometimes a lot of times I just talk. I talk with the people who are closest to me. If I'm trying to decide, do I invest in this? Do I spend energy on this? And people who know what my core values are, and they'll ask me prompting questions like, okay, well, are you going to be able to rebound afterward? You've got this other thing next week. Are you going to be able to do that next week? Are you going to have to choose between the two? So really tactical stuff
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, because when you think of that, it's not just, is this going to cost me peace? But when I decide to forego my peace, what does that cost me? What happens after that?
Hmm.
Right. And I think a lot of us, we say yes to things and we just keep loading the plate up because it sounds like a good idea.
Hmm.
And we forget about the aftermath of all of that.
Hmm.
And forget that we do need to make time for recovery. We do need to remember that our energy is not infinite.
Hmm.
And even though we want to try to make it work really bad, we're not superhuman. And like when I say we, I'm talking to me.
Hmm.
This is me just processing the things that I need to remember.
Yeah.
But it has got me in trouble time and time again because I can't tell you how many times I've said yes and I've just told myself you'll just make it work, and I couldn't make it work,
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
the last thing you want to do is disappoint people, right? So it's better to draw the boundary right up front because you know
Hmm.
yourself, and avoid that disappointment later down the road when you can't follow through.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's only so much gas in the tank, and like you're gonna end up paying for it somehow.
Yeah.
Whether it's through relationships, whether it's through burnout, whether it's having to cancel something you really want to do because you can't.
Yeah.
You can't with anybody anymore,
That's the worst. Oh, that is the
Yeah.
worst. And those are the moments where you really have to check yourself and be like, all right, I got to figure out this boundaries thing because this can't keep happening. um, so let's shift a little bit into philanthropy and legacy. I know we were
Mhm.
talking a little bit about philanthropy at the beginning of the episode, but I want to go back to it because, well, just, selfishly, I'm trying to figure out more ways to integrate philanthropy and legacy work into the CNY Women's Network. I know that there's a lot of interest in it from our members. One of the best events that we had last year was the Day of Caring when we all got together and wore CNY Women's Network t-shirts. And
Mhm.
granted, we were painting the Stay Fresh wall, which was like the coolest gig we could have gotten,
Is it the
right?
United Way
Yes,
Day?
the
Yeah.
United Way Day of
Yeah.
Caring. But after that event, I'm like, okay, how do we do this more, right? Um, you work with families on particularly on building a legacy and of giving, right? So what does that actually look like beyond just writing checks to,
Mhm.
organizations and causes you might care about?
Mhm. The legacy work that we do at the Community Foundation is values based. So coming back to, I think I feel like it's the theme of my podcast today. Um, Meaning that we believe giving is most fulfilling for us when we understand our core values and can support things that resonate with those core values. And I want to shout out a former colleague. Jen Owens is now she was at the Community Foundation here in Syracuse, and now she's down in Arlington. She's the CEO down there, and she had this great talk that was a portion of it was on LinkedIn, where she talked about the difference between um, giving based on values versus giving based on interests. And she talks about how, you can be interested in lots of things. You can be interested in animals and the environment and, human services. What values are what's underneath that, what's driving that. And typically, research has shown that your actual core values, it's a pretty small group. Because you start off, some of the work that we do at the Community Foundation is our exercises, or we have people identify words from a list. Talk to me about like what resonates you, what are things that are important to you. And then the list gets smaller and smaller, and like, well, my desire for wealth is really a desire for security.
Mm.
My desire for recognition is really a desire to be seen or be cared for. So it's a discernment process, and that's, I think, what makes our work a little bit different from some of the other models out there, is that we take a lot of time from the moment we meet someone and they're like, I want you to tell me where to give, to a place where they're like, okay, this feels right, this is aligned with what I want to do, this is what I want to leave for my community.
Yeah. And I can't imagine just the impact you feel like you've had in your career just on other people's lives to create an opportunity for other people to feel like they're making an impact. I mean, that's a beautiful thing.
It feels good. I'm really, really fortunate.
I'm sure it feels amazing. For someone who wants to be more intentional about giving, where should they start? Say you're talking to me, 28-year-old, professional woman who is still figuring it all out, but she knows how important philanthropy is. She's a generous, loving soul that wants to make the world a better place. How does she figure out where she wants to start when it comes to philanthropy?
Mhm. I would say that the conversation that I would have with you would be different than a conversation I would have with a 50-year-old, 60-year-old retired teacher. Giving is so personal. And so the exercises that we do to kind of tap into values and motivations look different for everyone. Um, so for, having a conversation with you, I might start with, what were some of the messages you remember when you were little about money?
Should we do it? Let's do
You want to jump in?
it.
Let's do this, Alex.
Money is hard to get and it's hard to manage, and there's never enough of it.
Mhm.
And I share that vulnerably because it's true. And I think that it's important that we share that if that resonates with anyone listening, that it's important to know that philanthropy is not out of reach for you. You can still engage in philanthropy, you can still give, and you can still make an impact with money, without money.
Mhm.
It's up to you. Um,
So can I ask a follow-up question?
mhm.
What if I replaced that word with generosity? What
I like that.
were the messages that you remember from when you were little about generosity?
The generosity is good. Generosity is more about giving what you can, whether it's energy, love, time. And I think that that might be that might be it, because I think that when I viewed generosity, it really was like you're generous with your energy, your time and your presence. You're present. You're here with me. It didn't always have to do with how generously are you giving things financially, or are you spending money on others.
Mhm. So, like, just having those two different trains of thought, um, how does that shift the way that you think about philanthropy just from 5 minutes ago?
I think when we hear the word philanthropy, we think of, I think, which I know better than this, but I think just analyzing how I've been conditioned, and like the first thought that comes to mind is, oh, philanthropy is something that wealthy people engage in, that have too much money and they need somewhere to put it.
Sometimes that's the case.
Which we can talk about that too, because I'm really hoping to be in that position someday, and I need to be a little savvy, which I don't know the first thing it comes to on the financial savviness of philanthropy, but I know it's a thing. But I don't know. I think that just reminded me that there is so much that I can do. And when you look at, okay, what are the resources I do have? Of course, you have, I think when it comes to giving, they talk about time, talent, treasure,
Mhm.
right? So for me, what I can, you know, afford to give right now, but also I think the best way I can give would be to contribute my time and my talent. And that looks like using the platform I've built for good, right? And to, you know, um, encourage others to support the causes and the organizations that align with my values, with the CNY Women's Network values as
Mhm.
well. And that's certainly something we plan on doing
Yeah,
more.
sounds like a great plan.
Thanks. Thanks, Monica. See, we did a little coaching session,
How
live
about
coaching.
that?
I love that.
One of the many services the Community Foundation offers.
Well, I mean, my next question is kind of about that, I guess. How can business owners or professionals integrate philanthropy into their life or brand in a meaningful way?
Mhm. We're fortunate in that we have several local businesses who we partner with to help manage their philanthropic giving. I think that the ones who find the most success partnering with us are the ones who um, have conversations about it internally as to what do we want to do here? Do we want to engage our employees to make them feel like, this is a group effort? Do we want to put our us, as the leadership of the organization, our money, toward this, and then make distributions out of a corporate DAF, for example, on behalf of the company, so that we can show our employees, like, we're putting our money where our mouth is. We say we care about the community. Here's what we're doing. Um, I think that the way that we are able to provide guidance and research for local businesses is helpful, because it allows them to explore options beyond sponsoring events, which is wonderful, and it is hugely impactful for nonprofits who are holding events for fundraising purposes and raising their profile. They rely on corporate donations. There are businesses that want to explore philanthropy beyond that as well, and knowing what organizations they can support confidently is really useful, because I think the business mindset of, I don't want to invest in something that I don't feel good about and that I don't know if it's going to be successful. And because of our presence in the nonprofit community, because we're so, the research that we do, and we're in continual communication with so many nonprofits in Central New York, we can guide businesses and connect them. Like, look at these two charities and what they're doing. See if that matches up with what you're trying to do, not only from an optics standpoint, but from a corporate values standpoint as well.
Yeah. So you guys are a connector.
We are a connector. Yeah, we can't solve all the problems, but we can connect you with the folks who can. So
That's right. All right. So to close out our episode, I want to do some rapid fire questions.
I'm ready. I'm ready for you, Alex.
Let's get after it. Okay. What is one leadership habit that has had the biggest impact on your career?
Taking notes to learn, not to remember.
I like that. Do you like to handwrite them?
I do.
That's good. That's good stuff. What's something you believe about leadership that most people would disagree with?
You're not supposed to have all the answers.
That's right. I'll remember that one. If someone listening wants to become a better leader this year, right now, where should they put their focus first?
On the people around them.
I love that. All right, last question, Monica. What are you currently cultivating in your life right now?
Curiosity.
I love that. That's my favorite answer we've gotten.
Really?
Yes. No, I'm all for curiosity. Actually, my mom gave me an amazing gift the other day, and it was a poetry book that I wrote in 5th grade.
Oh my goodness, you're kidding.
And it was so awesome. And I can't tell you how many times I identified myself and talked about curiosity. And it makes so much sense. I think I do this show because I'm curious.
Mhm.
I'm just a curious cat.
Oh,
I'm
that's
curious about people.
fantastic.
I just love to ask questions. So I love that. Cultivating curiosity in 2026. Thank you so much, Monica, for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Alex. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, that's it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to Cultivate CNY. If you enjoyed this conversation, I'd love it if you left us a quick review and made sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode. And if something in today's discussion resonated with you, please share it, whether it's on social media or directly with a friend. You never know how hearing this conversation might be exactly what someone needs right now. And I love to hear your feedback. I love to hear your thoughts. So please be sure to tag us on social media if you do share there.